the headliners, the newsmakers, the political scene, and government issues. These should be our concern, and we're taking you at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join me at the forefront as we discuss the details of national issues that our country faces. After leaving the post of National Security Advisor to President Bongbong Marcos, former Secretary Clarita Carlos has been working as Chief Policy Advisor on Security to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Her appointment as National Security Advisor broke tradition that the position must be held by a military person. While Secretary Carlos has left a post that she thinks many were after, her vast knowledge of national security matters remain her specialization. What are the most foreboding national security threats that our country is up against? To talk about national security threats is former National Security Advisor, Dr. Clarita Carlos. Good morning, Dr. Clarita.
Hi, Karen. Good morning.
Well, let's start with national security threats. What do you think are the most pressing national security threats that our country is facing?
Well, beyond the national, it's really, beyond the nation state, it's really climate change. Okay, as you can see, 4 days already we're having a different kind of rainfall. You know, it's like there are alligators on my roof while it's raining. It's a different kind of rainfall, and we should pay attention to that. Of course, the other, near the stomach issues would be always our concern. But I think the national and beyond the national would be the consequences of climate change, and I think we should pay more attention to that because that spells our survival more than anything else. Yeah.
So do you think that currently we are not taking sufficient measures to address climate change?
We are, but there are so many treaty commitments. Okay, we're signatory to Paris 2015 and all the COPs that where we attend. But I think there's need for a more coordinated efforts among agencies of government so that everybody is really paying attention to, in a network kind of, an interlocking kind of coordinated efforts to really fight the consequences of climate change. I mean, look at what we're doing. After the rains, then we allow the people to go back to high-risk areas. Why are we doing that? Diba? We are actually, we're doubling the risk. Not only that, next time they will ask again to be evacuated. Why are we doing that? Is that something complicated to think about? That's what I always think. And I think what is wrong there is you don't have a national land use policy. How many Congresses, Karen, had gone without a national land use? Because if you have a national land use, that means you designate which are high-risk areas. Don't live here, because every time you live here, then you'll have to ask for our help. That means we use government facilities and resources to rescue you. And we keep on doing that. For so long as there is no national land use policy, coordinated. I mean, look at the flood control program, reportedly, although this had been denied. There's no master plan. For God's sake, wala kang master plan ng flood control. Diba?
Dr. Clarita, what about areas like Marikina? So if you're talking about high-risk areas, that's certainly proven for so many years that it's high risk for flooding. Should there be massive relocation because these are not also informal settlers for a lot of the landowners there?
Yeah, I think beyond that, there are already advanced technologies. So you'll build, I'm not an engineer, but I can imagine that from a common standpoint, a civilian standpoint, you can build very high dikes, just to protect the civilian population. Because it's all there before. And by the way, Marikina River was not swollen as it was when we were younger. We used to, catch shrimp there, etc. My father would bring us there. And it did not swell as it is swelling now. Why? It's because the mountains around that, they're all denuded. And when you denude the mountains, I'm sure you know what comes next. The water will just rampage down and carry, whatever. It's really horrible watching cars being, carried by the rampaging waters. Wow. And it keeps on repeating. It keeps on repeating.
What about politics, the state of politics? Do you consider this as a threat to national security?
I don't think so. There are always noises, you know. In fact, it's almost entertaining sometimes. You have to look at it like that. You know?
Yeah, with what's going on and everything. But with respect to President Marcos's presidency, do you see any important threats or pressing threats to his presidency?
I don't think so. You know, I was in cabinet for six and a half months. Oh? I got out in January, mid-January. You know, people denigrate the president, and that's not fair to him. He reads a lot. He discusses blockchain technology in the cabinet, and there are only 3 of us knowing what blockchain is all about. Yeah, he reads a lot. And, you know, we elected him by a huge majority, for God's sake. Let us make him succeed. Otherwise, if there are always threats for him to be overthrown, we're like a banana republic. Why are we doing that? Isn't it? Yeah.
Well, there's been also a breakup of the UNI team. Do you see this as potentially threatening the stability of the presidency?
I don't think so. You know, you start off with a very broken political party system. So that means that the vetting of who is going to run where, it's being done by a small cadre of people, and you know how it works. But if the political party system were stable, then the vetting of who's going to run where will be done within the political party. Why? Because no one person can promise anything without the political party behind him. Because what you promise, whatever it is that you promise, will have to be done by Congress. That means you will have to have people in Congress, which will make it happen. I'll give you an example. Remember, the Conservative Party of Great Britain promised Brexit to get out of the EU. So they really campaigned on that. If you elect members of the Conservative Party, we will get out of the EU. So that's what they promised. They controlled the House of Commons. They got out of the EU. Of course, now they're all regrets, but that's another story. But the point is, if you have a broken political party system, any coalition is a fragile coalition. So the breakup of the UNI team is really, it's almost written in the stars, you know. It's not anything surprising to me as a political scientist.
Well, some people say that part of the reasons why the UNI team broke up is also because of the people's initiative to reform or change the Constitution. Do you agree with that?
I don't think so. I think it's, well, I don't know enough. I'm not privy to why it broke up. But, you know, when we were in cabinet, because I was seated next to the vice president, you know, the president and the vice president really had a very, very good relationship. I mean, you can feel it. It's not anything put on. You know, you really can feel it. That's why, but I guess there were a lot of things that happened after I left, and I really don't know. But I think this will all, how do you call it, resolve itself. We have a new election coming in a few months, in May. And yeah, let's let everybody contest it. But again, because you have a broken political party system, that is the core of our democracy. When you have a broken political party system, then everything else will follow, which is the compromising many of our democratic practices. You have democratic deficit all around. Yeah.
But when you say broken political party system, are you saying that because we allow multiple parties to run, or are you saying that we should have a two-party system like the United States?
No, actually, we should not have, you're a lawyer, Karen. Don't put in the Constitution the political party type. Because it's supposed to come out of the dynamics of the system. So that if you were to put that it will be 2 political parties, then Angela Merkel, the SPD, the CSU, CDU could not have come to a coalition because it will violate the basic law of Germany. Don't put it there, because you allow the system to bring about the dynamics. It can be one party at a certain point in your political life. It can be 2-party. It can be multi-party. There is no one virtuous party system. It will depend on the political culture. Do we need to have a multi-party? Then let it be. Will 2 political parties emerge? Certainly, we will not copy the very rigid 2 political parties of the US. You know where they're going, okay? So it's not so much that. It is the fact that because you don't have a rigid political party setup, whatever you promise, you do not carry it forth to the Congress. Suppose you say, okay, I promise we will liberalize the economy, we'll open up the economy, that means foreigners can own land or whatever, the details of, then that one will have to be echoed by your party members. That's why the political party is very important. Suppose, Karen, you're running for a member of parliament, you're a party list, mag-isa ka lang. There's only one of you, 315 yun. There are 350 now. I see this dynamics because my office is in the House right now, in the Congress. So you alone, or you tell me, ilan ba yung party list yan? You know, you cannot make things happen. You need to have a political party behind you. Then, if there is no majority political party, you need to have a coalition of political parties. But the coalition must have agreement in fundamentals. Otherwise, it will unravel. No? So I suspect, not knowing any better about the so-called unity team, that there was no agreement on fundamentals. Because if there's agreement in fundamentals that's deeply seated, mahirap mag-unravel. But if there's only agreement, which is so superficial, it is a very delicate coalition.
Well, ever since we saw the breakup of the UNI team, there were other criticisms against the president with respect to the Pulveron video and other controversies, but he remained silent, while others would say that this is also a sign of weakness or being conflict averse. What would be your comment on that?
I don't like to comment because I don't know enough, no? But maybe silence can mean so many things. It's also a strategy in negotiation. You keep silent so people don't know what you're going to do or what's in your mind.
Yeah.
So, but if people have the evidence, let them come out with it. We're a country governed by the rule of law. So, but everything else is chismis, what do you call this? Yung sa social media, there's so much noise there, no? It's almost deafening, no? Yeah.
Well, let's go back to some of the fundamental, I think, like flaws that you see with this broken party system, and it has perhaps something to do with also our Constitution. Do you think that it's time to change the Constitution? Do you agree with the People's Initiative?
It's not so much the modality, because People's Initiative is, because there are two others, Constituent Assembly and the other is Constitutional Convention. Since, maybe there's a little bit of history here. Since 1990, I've been with the LOGODEF, Local Government Development Foundation. We've been going around the archipelago doing political education, not advocating anything. Ako I'm the curtain raiser there. I talk about federalism, parliamentary system. Because I know that at a later time, people will vote. And when they vote, I want them to give an informed vote. No, so whatever it is, whether you want to do it through initiative, through Constituent Assembly, or to Constitutional Convention, then let us really change our Constitution, because this Constitution, which was crafted post-Marcos, is an anti-Marcos Constitution. And it's one of the longest constitutions. If I were not a political scientist, I will not read that Constitution. I'm sure you've read it several times because you're a lawyer. Sobrang haba niya, parang napakadaldal na Constitution, no? And let's not put everything there. Then you have numbers. Don't put numbers in Constitution, because I'm sure you know that the times will outlive the numbers. The numbers will be, obsolescent.
Yeah, and the Constitution is meant to remain for decades and many years.
Yeah, but if it no longer, if this is a Constitution and this is your political culture and they are already clashing, then change this. Because the political culture is more difficult to change because it's deeply embedded. And we keep on saying that given the deficit that you're seeing, then let us have a shift from a presidential system to a parliamentary system. I don't think you have time to really look into the details of that. Maybe that's another program. And then you shift from a unitary system to a federal system. In fact, the issue of the BARM, the autonomy, and they don't have, there's a limited fiscal autonomy, you can easily resolve that by federalizing the country. We've been saying that for, 1,000 years already. Yeah, let's federalize. Because the unitary system is only good for a colonial system where you control the periphery and everything is happening in the center,
Are you part of the People's Initiative?
No. The People's Initiative is really a modality. As I said, it's part of a troika. And if I may say something, Karen, about Constituent Assembly and what is this, Constitutional Convention, there's actually no difference between the two. Why? Because the electoral system is replete with requirements for, you have to have, organization, you have to have salapi to be able to campaign, etc. Whether it's Constituent Assembly, who are composed of members of Congress, and Constitutional Convention, it's the same. I mean, why are we quibbling about that? Why are we quibbling about that? Diba?
Yeah. So you think if we are able to achieve constitutional change, it doesn't matter which modality, but what's important is the substance of the reform.
The initiative was questioned. Tell me about that. I can't remember now. It was questioned to the Supreme Court for whatever reason. I cannot remember.
I think more on the regularity of the...
Is it the process or something? I don't know.
Yes, and also some allegations that there were people whose signatures were being collected in exchange for money. So I think it's more on the,
it's on the
validity of the process.
But it's there in the Constitution. It's one of the three ways of revising the Constitution. Yeah.
Do you think that a reform in the Constitution can also be politicized, meaning some members of Congress wanting to change the terms? And of course, there were also some allegations that Speaker Martin would want to be Prime Minister or take a more senior or significant role.
Yeah. My take on that is that there will always be motives. There will always be personal motives. There will always be collective motives. And for me, as a social scientist, motives are landmines in research. In other words, you never know. You never know. In fact, the person, rarely knows unless she or he deliberately digs into what are really my intentions. Many times you don't know. They are really papered over by some other things. So it's a non-starter if we talk of motives. Let us just talk of the changes that we want to do. From unitary to federal, open the economy, liberalize the economy, then from presidential to parliamentary, and like that. Because my thinking is that if you change, there are two ways of changing society. One, I change you, Karen. And the empirical evidence suggests it will take 3 generations to change you. 90 years, that's a long, long time. Diba? Hindi na tayo makahintay dyan. You change the institutions within which the person is working. Let us say the institution looks like this glass. And that means the person will work within the shape of the glass. And that's the quickest way to change his behavior. The floor and the ceiling will be limited by the institution. That is the meaning of revising the Constitution, the quicker way to change things. That is my continuing belief, by the way. That's why I'm in full support of constitutional changes.
Okay. Let's go right now to real armed threats with respect to the geopolitical situation of the Philippines. What is the level of the threat to the Philippines' national security that the continued Chinese aggression poses? But before you answer that question, Dr. Clarita will have to take a short break.
Yeah.
At the forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the forefront. And before the break, we were asking you, Dr. Clarita, what do you think is the level of threat to the Philippines' national security with the continued aggression from China?
Even while I was NSA, I continue to believe until now that nobody wants to go to war. China is selling to the world. Its economy is in the doldrums now. It should, in fact, just yesterday, it met with all the 54 states of Africa, promising them development, huge investment, multi-billion investment in infrastructure. That is the kind of thing that, China should also be offering to Southeast Asia, East Asia, and where are their neighbors? Ang layo ng Africa, di ba? So I don't know why it's doing that. And I remembered when I continued to meet with Wang Xilian, the ambassador, we really had many common points. Even with Wang Yi, the foreign minister, when he came here, I had a more than 1 hour meeting with him. And I was wondering why we had some, agreement in principle that we would move from high politics of territory and sovereignty to low politics to talk about fish, common fishing ground, maritime protected areas. And I don't know why the conversation shifted from low politics to high politics. Where are we going? And do you know what else I discovered when I was NSA, Karen? There is a MOA between Chinese Coast Guard and Philippine Coast Guard. And that was, at the time I was there, this was 2023, di ba? Toka na ng China to host the Philippine Coast Guard. Ando na eh. There's already a legal framework for them to talk about things, some modalities, a modus vivendi. I'm really wondering, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, they also contest the South China Sea. And yet they have very, very robust economic relationship with China. As a matter of fact, China built the bullet train of Indonesia, now building that one in Kuala Lumpur. The same with Vietnam, a very, very robust economic relationship. So we're missing something here. We should really find a way for China to reduce its aggressive and bellicose behavior in the South China Sea and really talk to us in terms of trade, in terms of, fish, in terms of, we're writing a book on regional fishing agreement, and we'd like that to be part of the ways to resolve the South China Sea issue. Let us talk about fish. Let us talk about seabed resources, because, and then I think there's a major fundamental change in our thinking in terms of, and I also took this up with Wang Yi and Wang Xilian. Let us shift from ownership, nobody can own anything, to stewardship. Again, we go back to climate change, isn't it? Can you imagine if something catastrophic happens in the South China Sea? Who's going to be accountable? Who's going to be responsible? Diba? Let's talk of a major oil spillage. Then it will be pointing fingers, o ikaw, total, dinalbaan mo yung buong South China Sea, ikaw na lang maglinis niyan. Diba? When there's catastrophe, nagturoan na kung sino may-ari ng South China Sea. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But yes, there must be a modality. But I think what we're missing out is that actually we are really the proxy for the United States. What is happening is really China doing these things, continued bellicose action, and saying, tignan ko nga kung nasan yung promesa ng Amerika sa'yo. Hindi mo ba nakikita yun, Karen? Parang,
no, I think,
diba?
yeah.
Actually, anyway, kung tatlo to, no? Tayo to eh. Tapos ito yung China at saka US. Actually, binibwisit tayo ng China. Actually, ang binibwisit niya US. Sabi, nagpromesa naman US sa'yo. Tignan ko nga kung magpopromesa yan. Yung sinabi ni Pompeo, sinabi ni Blinken, lalo na ngayon, anong pangalan nito? Lame duck na si Biden, di ba? And palagi pang sabi ng ironclad. Kaya nga sabi ko, I was thinking, Karen, if Trump becomes a president of the US again, Trump will be good for the region. No? Why? Total Trump is a businessman. Sisingilin niya yung Taiwan for defending Taiwan eh. Sinisingil niya yung South Korea,
very transactional.
Baka tayo singilin din niya sa EDCA. Anyway, ang hingi natin ganito. I-review natin ang MDT, Mutual Defense Treaty. Kasi before I left, nung November ata, parang inutusan ako ni Bongbong na mag-head ako ng study team. Gulat na gulat nga ako eh. So I had this study team together with DND and DFA. Tatlo kami eh. Nagmi-meeting kami sa NSC. We were supposed to look at EDCA kasi EDCA mag-expire. Diba? 1 year before magsabi ka kung magtutuloy to, hindi magtutuloy. Eh yung EDCA kasi is one of the legs ng MDT. MDT kasi may leg yan. BFA, MILSA, EDCA. Kala nila kay EDCA kasi standalone, hindi. Nakatusok yan sa naglilin yan sa Mutual Defense Treaty, which is a treaty. Let us have that reviewed, radically reviewed, and let us require the Article 5 of NATO, automaticity. Because we keep on quibbling about, susuportahan ba tayo ng US o hindi ba, etc. Sasabay ba sila dun sa RORE ng resupply niyan, or hindi. Ngayon, nag-backpedal na naman sila. Let us demand Article 5 in the new MDT. And if they demur, let us abrogate the treaty. And let us move towards multi-alignment and armed neutrality. I had already memoed the President on that several times nung NSA ako.
Do you think we have enough negotiating leverage to abrogate the Mutual Defense Treaty
Yeah, why
and
not?
then have a different arrangement?
Yes,
You think so?
US needs us. US needs us. Tingnan mo yung geography natin, Karen. Di ba nandito tayo? Tayo nga pinakamalapit, ang layo-layo ng Japan at South Korea. Tayo pinakamalapit. Diba? Pacific Ocean, South China Sea. We really have the key strategic position. Eh, pagkatanga tayo, hindi natin nakikita yan eh. Di ba? Ay, sorry ah. Mapagpatahan dito.
It's okay. Well, how would you compare the policies of the administration under former President Duterte and the current administration of President Bongbong Marcos when it comes to the West Philippine Sea?
It's just a matter of, hindi naman nag-change. It's just a matter of emphasis siguro. At the time, we'd like to think that Duterte is pro-China. Actually, he was an extreme pragmatist. He knew how weak we are militarily and parang ito lang yung magagawa natin. Pero sometimes yung extreme pragmatism kasi may dangers din yan. And President Bongbong, I'm sure when he was inaugurated, I remember sabi niya, China is our partner, our neighbor, our friend. Tatlo eh. Yun ang palagi kong sinasabi kay Ambassador Wang Xilian, hindi niyo ba pinangawatan-wanan yung sinabi ng Presidente? Sige kayo kung ano nung ginagawa nun dyan sa South China Sea. When I went to Pag-asa, alam mo ba, lumapit yung dalawang boat ng South China. Kitang-kita ko sila from the Pag-asa Island. And I said, ba't yung ginagawa ito? No? Why are you doing this? It's like you're talking from both sides, from so many sides of your mouth, no? And I thought you were talking about shared resources, shared future, may mga shared nila. Sabi ko, ano ba? Wala bang katuturan itong mga sinasabi ni Xi Jinping? I always say that. Oh, by the way, they continue to talk to me even hindi na ako NSA. Now I'm a political scientist and I really can just declare to them now what I have in my mind. Kasi nung NSA ako, dapat, I'm just working within kung ano yung sinasabi ni Bongbong, di ba?
Yes.
So ngayon, masaya na ako.
But you did say that we must be missing something because even if Vietnam and Malaysia, for example,
Malaysia and Indonesia,
have that conflict with China as well in terms of the territories, they are still benefiting from some of the infrastructure.
What's the solution? Decoupling. When you decouple, ito yung geopolitical, ito yung economic, dalawang pathways mo, ito pakailaman mo. Nagtitinda kami sa China ng pineapple, banana, ito, virgin coconut oil. Ito sa political, kaya nga sabi ko something you will not agree upon, high politics ito ito yung low politics. Set aside mo siya. Kasi mamamatay na tayo lahat, hindi natin mariresolve yan. Di ba? That's why a regional fishing agreement will resolve some things. Sana nga matapos yung libro na yun para may proposal talaga.
You said before that national security is also human security.
It's human security.
What does that mean?
Well, I think in the intro, you said I'm not a military person. No? And so many people really wanted my job from day one. Sabi ko, sige, sa inyo na lang. Ang dami-daming problema nitong trabaho na to. But really, when it really comes to, like pag-alis mo ng bahay kanina, Karen, di ba sa inisip mo, meron ba akong salapi pambiling gas? Pagbalik ko ba, makakabalik ba ako, buhay din ako pagbalik ko? Yan. So meron kang security of your person. Security na may konti kang salapi. Security na kahit yung traffic sa EDSA, makarating ka dito sa studio mo, etc. Yun ang tinatawag kong human security. The security from an individual standpoint. Malayo naman sa isipan mo yung South China Sea, di ba? Of course, meron diyang threat. But as I said, from my standpoint, nobody will want to go to war. Trump will not go to war. In fact, sabi nga niya, hindi nga ako mag-spend ng isang American, life ng isang American soldier dyan sa mga rocks dyan. Rocks ang tawag dyan sa South China Sea. Sabi niya ng Taiwan, sisingilin ko yan for defending Taiwan. Kaya actually I like Trump. He was the only president who met with North Korean Kim Jong-un. Hindi lang yun, remember, Karen, yung sa Panmunjom, yung North and South Korea divide. Ang ginawa niya, kinross na lang niya, wala siyang pakialam doon sa historic noon. I like that, di ba? Trump will be good for our region. And of course, many people don't like him kasi boorish siya, parang sangga, no? But he will be good for our region. He will be good for the world. In fact, Ukraine would not have happened if he were president.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
The Ukraine and Russia war.
Yes. And I'm sorry, let's not, but if Merkel were chancellor, Ukraine will not happen. Because
Merkel was still the
yes,
Chancellor of
because
Germany.
Merkel is a physicist, is a scientist. That's why our leader should be scientists, no? Because Merkel knows what Putin already felt when NATO was moving towards his sphere of influence. And Merkel knew that. This one now who replace him is a, wag bad word na lang. Fill in the blank. Fill in the blanks na lang.
Okay, well, since we're talking about potential presidents and next leaders, we have, as you said, a few months from now, 2025 elections, and a few years from now, the 2028 elections. What do you think of Vice President Sara Duterte? Do you think she's ready to become the next president of the Philippines? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Before the break, Dr. Clarita, we were asking you, in your opinion, do you think that Vice President Sara Duterte is ready to become the next president of the Philippines?
Actually, I met Sara only in the cabinet there. Remember, I told you we were seated together doon sa ano. I found her a very decent person and very soft-spoken. Ang baba ng salita, ano, kamukha ni President, hindi nagtataas ng boses. I think she has the wherewithal to be vice president or any position she wants. Kasi she was mayor of Davao, and you know, to be mayor really requires tremendous competence, skill, and you know, the wherewithal to lead, really, you know, lead a city. I think she's ready to become the next president. You know?
Well, as an expert on national security and a political scientist, I'll just ask you very quickly, and you can say yes or no. Some of the current events going on right now, do you think they might be threats to the country's security? So number one, this whole issue with Alice Guo, she might be part of a larger syndicate. Like the others are saying, this might be just the tip of the iceberg. Do you think that is a potential or possible security threat?
I don't think so, but I know so little kasi about gambling. Eh. Well, let it be. You know, if you have a case against her, file it. And ano, dami-daming drama na dyan eh, di ba? Kakayamot na, di ba? So, sabi ko nga sa iyo kanina, wag mo ako itanong tungkol dyan eh. Because I know so little about it. You know, wag mo nang pahabain yung istorya. If you have something against her, file it. We're a country governed by the rule of law.
What about Pastor Apollo Kibuloy being at large and this whole arrest warrant taking right now, I think almost 2 weeks already to be served? Do you think this is a threat to national security as well?
I don't think so. Ang pinapagtaka ko lang, Karen, ano, kasi nung NSA ako, every time I would meet with the PNP head who would come to my office several times, sasabihin ni Boy Faustino sa akin, Secretary of National Defense, sabi niya, oh ma'am, mimitin mo pala yung head ng PNP, I forgot his name noon. Ano. Sabi niya, sabihin mo sa kanya sila na mag-take over ng ISO. Yung, ano ba yung ISO? Internal Security Something Operation. Yung tungkol sa insurgency. Sasabihin ko naman sa PNP head, oy, sabi ni Boy Faustino, kayo na lang daw mag-head ng ISO. Ma'am, hindi pa kami ready. You know, bakit ko sinasabi yun? Sandamukal sila doon sa Kikibuloy. Akala ko ba kulat kayo ng...
Yeah, because I think they sent 2,000 PNP personnel there.
Kayo na nga mag-take over ng ISO dahil hindi naman yan mandato ng AFP. Mga ganun eh. Kaya lang baka magalit naman sa akin yung... Sino nga bayad ng PNP?
I have a friend who told me, 2,000 PNP personnel there? I didn't know we had 2,000 PNP.
But you know, ang dami nila. I think they're 275. AFP, konti lang. You know. No, ang AFP kasi external defense. Wag mo siyang bigyan ng mandato ng insurgency. Ang insurgency kasi peace and order eh. I mean, lawyer ka, Karen. Ang insurgency, PNP yan. I mean, ba't natin nagko-collide ang mandato nila? Yan yung isa sa mga mission ko sa buhay, magkaroon ng bureaucratic reform sa atin. A comprehensive one, massive talaga. No?
Now let's go to you as a person, more personal question.
Wow, there's nothing to talk about me.
Well, you did mention that you were a national security advisor for about over 6 months.
Yeah, 6.5.
And when you left your position, there were reports that you were offered to take any cabinet position. Is that true? And if so, why did
no,
you
that's
accept?
not true. Let's not go there.
Okay.
Let's not go there. I don't want to discuss it kasi meron security aspect na baka lumapit tayo doon, and I will not discuss it. Yeah. I'm sorry, Karen. Yeah.
It's okay. And you've been a professor for over 50 years at the
Like
University
58.
of the
I'm
Philippines.
78 now So I started teaching when I was 20. I'm teaching a course on, last semester I taught a course on political leadership. Today, I'm teaching a course on regional integration. Inis na inis nga ako kasi natatamaan kami ng cancellation.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Well, I teach in the Masters of Law program.
Yeah, di ba?
And tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung class namin.
Hindi, ayoko kasi na online.
Yeah,
I don't like online.
That's the only difference, yeah.
Nothing happens in online, believe me, no? Let me declare it in, in your show. Nothing happens in online,
So currently, you're a senior advisor to
Chief Policy Advisor to
House Speaker Martin Romualdez. How is he why did you choose to work with him?
I did not choose to work with him. Maybe this part I can share with you, in my very long talk with the President after when I left. The President declared that I should continue to be part of the government. And I said that I'm a scholar and I'll just go back to the university where I would like to continue teaching and die teaching. And Speaker Martin was there in that meeting and he said that there is a think tank in Congress. And that is how it happened that office was created, Chief Policy Advisor on National Security for advising the Speaker. And so instead of my memos going to President, my memos now on foreign policy and security go to Speaker Martin. Yeah.
Thank you so
Speaker
much.
Martin is, we met in Cornell, by the way. I was doing my postdoc there and he was doing his political science. Yeah, it's it's a very decent person. It's so easy to talk to him. And I believe my thinking and his thinking are usually on the same page on national security. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Clarita Carlos. It's really been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, same here.
Former National Security Advisor Dr. Clarita Carlos thinks that the President Bongbong Marcos' administration is doing just enough in nipping political, internal, and external threats in the bud. But national security is a very fluid and dynamic challenge that needs round-the-clock monitoring and immediate action. What Dr. Clarita Carlos fundamentally believes in is that national security is human security. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again on Monday for the formal launch of the Bilyonario News Network on Cignal TV, Channel 24. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Have a great weekend, everyone.